So I want to invite you, as we have conversation here. Diamond and I are going to have a little bit of a conversation, but we really want you to be part of it as well too. So if you're able to keep your camera on, if you have questions, if you'd like to type those in the chat, or if you'd like to just ask, I'll make space at the end for you to ask whatever questions you might have as well. So first of all, thanks so much, Diamond. I know it was a lot of work putting together that talk, and you did a really amazing job. So thank you for taking the time both to do the talk and turn that out to the world, and also for making time to talk with us today. So thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. This was more fun than I think you guys would understand. Of course, there was work going into it, but this is something I like talking about, something I love to do. And of course, I had these amazing characters helping me along the way. So it was really fun.
Great. So let me ask you this a little bit. One of the things that you talk about in your talk is the Program Improvement Plan pilot in Florida, the PIP pilot as it's called in Florida. And it sounded like kind of as that started out, maybe there was a time at the beginning there where you didn't feel like you were quite being heard or can contribute, and then that kind of shifted. And I'm wondering, what would it have looked like if that had engaged the right way from the beginning, right? So how would you have liked to have been engaged in that so that we didn't have to kind of come back and repair that piece? What would it have looked like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think if it was done right at the beginning, all the stakeholders that don't have like immediate knowledge about this kind of stuff, like foster parents, bio parents, of course, foster youth, former foster youth, we all would have been sat down maybe in a Zoom meeting, or if you're doing it in person, like an office, and just told your explicit purpose of being here, that it's your experience that is needed. Knowledge of data and stuff like that is appreciated, of course, but really you're here to give your experience and your input based on the stuff that you already know.
Great. So a little bit of more kind of organizing or preparing kind of up at the front of that. I'm curious how that feeds in. I'm noticing in the chat some folks liked your quote about having the power to make the inclusion of youth voice required. I'm wondering if you want to comment a little about that like that. What is the power of youth voice? How do we enhance the power of youth voice in these kinds of situations?
Well, I think the best way to improve youth voice around not just the state, but the nation is by making sure that we have systems in place that make youth voice something that's addressed from the very beginning. As I said in my talks, we have implemented some youth councils in my organization, One Voice Impact, and those help to have at the ground level where all the foster youth, the foster parents are, for them to have a central base to talk about their issues and their problems without feeling pressure or without feeling like they're going to be penalized by a higher power. And then those youth councils can then take those issues, and if they can solve them on their own on a local level, they do so. And then if they can't, they bring them up to higher ups.
Appreciate that kind of sketching out of that. And I want to get back to One Voice Impact and youth councils in a minute, but there's one thing that you said in your talk that I thought was really interesting that I want to explore a little bit further. You talked about learning to know when and how to use your voice, which I think is a really interesting piece, right? Because on the one hand, we need to have systems and we need to have folks, professionals in the system open to making that a possibility. And then on the other hand, we also have, we need to empower youth to be in a position where they feel like they do know when and how to use their voice. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about like what that journey is like for you, or how you might think others might, experience that.
Yeah, I think for how to use your voice, youth need to be trained on things that they can say, things that they can't say, things that they can advocate for. Because being a youth in foster care, you don't even know where you're going to be spending the night next month. You could be in a different placement within the matter of hours. So being able to advocate for yourself is not something that's just going to come naturally. And some youths don't even know that they can advocate for themselves at all. When I was younger, I didn't even know I could advocate for my right to have extracurricular activities during school. Like these are small things that you wouldn't think that we don't personally know, but we don't. So, proper training and education on what youth are entitled and not entitled to is a great start. And as far as when to use your voice, that's really up to the system professionals to create spaces and make it known that youth are allowed to use their voice in those circumstances because we're scared and we're not just going to do it instinctually.
I think you make a good point about there might be a little bit of fear there or uncertainty. Are there particular things or pieces of advice that you have for systems professionals about how to help youth overcome that? Are there things that can help them feel more secure to voice their concerns or their ideas?
Yeah. On a individual level for youth, like staffing meetings, transitional planning meetings, and stuff like that. Just making sure that when you're going along with what you're saying, you're asking questions, checking in, seeing if the youth process exactly what you were saying, seeing if they necessarily have things that they don't feel like they could share, but making it known that they are allowed to share them and that it's an open place to share those things. And then on an advocacy level, just being sure to reach out to those youth that you feel like are interested in advocating for other peers and stuff like that, and showing them these opportunities, connecting them to their resources because they're not going to be able to do it themselves.
Thanks. It strikes me that that's a little bit of, maybe that's kind of in your talk, you mentioned that kind of the difference between what you said was token representation as opposed to authentic engagement. I hear the term authentic engagement being used a lot now. And it shows up on a lot of PowerPoint slides and things that don't look very authentic, to be honest. So I'm wondering if you might say a little bit about what that means from your perspective. Like, what does it mean to authentically engage a youth in this kind of conversation? What does that look like or sound like or feel like?
It's actually very simple, just actually caring about what the youth have to say. And that can be shown in a myriad of different ways. For example, with the PIP talk, treating us like you would treat the system professionals from the very beginning. That is a very important aspect of authentic engagement because it shows that the youth are on the same level as, let's say, the attorneys, the guardian ad litems, and things of that sort. Making sure that your youth are compensated for their time. We have jobs. I have a job. I go to school. I pay rent. I take care of 2 baby cats. I am a working woman, okay? So my time is valuable. And if I'm going to use my voice, I want to be compensated for using my voice. And just making sure that you actually take the time to make those authentic relationships emotionally, connect with the youth, show them that you care about them personally and what they have to say and what's going on in their lives. That could go a long way.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. I understand that there's things to be reckoned with when you're the working mom of 2 young cats. I know that's we talked a little bit about your cats before we came on here, and I know that one especially can be a handful. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you talking about just the need, like, that there is a need to understand that you've got other requirements, right? Like it's not like all the youth that have ever been in the system are just lined up at the door waiting because they want to talk to you and they have nothing else better to do during the day or other things that they need to attend to. So that there's a competition for resources and time in your world, just like everyone else's. So I appreciate that.
And honestly, I'm pretty open as far as former foster youth. We get really bogged down. I know there's one girl in my program that I happen to be very close with. She works 4 jobs. So, she wants to use her voice, but if she's not being compensated the same as her other 3-4 jobs, then that's not necessarily in the books for her.
Yeah, I appreciate that. To me, it seems like that goes into the idea of it being meaningful, right? Just telling you that you can say whatever you want whenever doesn't mean that it's meaningful if you don't have the real opportunity to do it, or if it's not coming to to people that need to hear it. So I appreciate that. You've mentioned a couple times One Voice Impact and kind of how that has impacted you, it sounds like, or has kind of framed your model or your way of thinking about this. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the organization that I work for, One Voice Impact, I actually got into their organization very unconventionally. I went to a virtual graduation, and then from there, they kind of recruited me. So I came in completely blind, not knowing anything about child welfare, not knowing anything about advocacy or anything of that sort. So I got to form a fresh mind with a fresh perspective on how they do things. And they are shifting to a model where we have a network of youth councils. Right now, we're serving 14 youth councils across the state of Florida. And basically, we help with technical support. If they need financial assistance, we help with that as well. We train the youth in their programs. And it's kind of just a way for us to get together and have these localized communities have a central base where they can share their issues that are common amongst all of them, and we can take them to DCF leadership. So I personally think that's the best way to go about it, because with different counties in a central state, there are some things that you can handle on your own, and there's some things that can be handled with the IL workers in that specific area or their programs that they can create on their own behalf. But there's some things that just are so rampant that they need to be addressed on a state or federal level.
I appreciate what you're saying about the idea of this youth council and what that looks like. And I'm wondering, it seems to me that this is kind of part of an evolution, right? So in the beginning, a while ago, let's say, it occurred to someone like, oh, hey, maybe we ought to actually ask youth something about how this is going, right? Like that was a new idea at one point, and everyone was like, oh, that's interesting. And then it became, hey, maybe we should actually invite them to a meeting. Anyone know any youth that might want to come to a meeting and tell us about this, right? And I think a lot of us are functioning in systems that kind of look like that now. But I hear you advocating for kind of what I would think of as the next evolution of that, which is this organization of youth coming together in a council. And I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about kind of what do you see as the advantages to that? Why is that better than kind of a system where I'm just like, oh, I can just pick some youth that I know and they'll come tell us some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see me now. The product of having that kind of training, having that kind of experience. If you get a random youth from that just came out of foster care, for example, they're not going to know what a youth council is. They're not going to know what a guardian ad litem is sometimes. They're not going to know what a senator is sometimes, So it's most important for the aspect of experience and knowing what you're talking about, because it's great to get youth voice, but if you're getting youth voice that has no idea what you're talking about, you're not going to get results that you want, and you're not going to get feedback that's going to be meaningful to anything that you're trying to do. Also, it's just more convenient for everyone. If you have a group of individuals from a certain county that you can say has researched the issues, knows all the issues, people feel comfortable to come to, then you know that whenever you're like, oh, let me check in with Citrus, which is a service area that we have, you could say, oh, okay, they have a youth council with 5 youth that know the ins and outs of what's going on, and we'll talk to them, and hopefully if they say everything's fine, we can trust that, and if not, we can readily address the issues that they have.
Are there particular things that you think youth, like kind of emerging youth councils or people that are kind of working on this idea now, are there particular things that you think are helpful for them to know about, or skills for them to have, that if I were thinking that I might want to organize something like this in my area, are there particular skill sets or things that you think I should make sure that I'm ready to share with youth?
Yeah. At the very basis, be ready to have a youth adult partnership, which is basically where youth and adults have equal importance in the relationship and they're making authentic connections. I see someone say yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Because if they feel like they have equal voice and they have a genuine connection with you, then they are able to open up to you in a better capacity. Also, using your local resources, contact your case managers, contact your IL workers, contact your GALs, because those are the people that are going to get your youth. Those are the people that know your youth the best. And if they know a youth that would be good for your organization, they're going to take it upon themselves to tell them about it. And then there you go. Someone that they already trust has given them the leeway to come to you and they're going to be open. And also just being prepared to be ever adjusting, ever flexible, because youth councils are not easy to set up. You have a myriad of different youth who have different experiences, sometimes different trauma levels, sometimes they're busy, sometimes things just happen. So you have to be prepared to be ever adjusting and ever willing to keep going and persisting.
So I asked if there were particular things that you thought to know. What about on the systems professional side? Like, if here's a chance to lay out something. If there were a couple things that you wish that people were trying to help youth organize knew, do you have like a top list of a couple things of what that might be?
Oh, okay, let's do this. So we understand and we appreciate your input, but if you say it in a condescending way, we're not going to like you. That is number one, and that is very important. You are smarter than us in some capacities, but we are smarter than you in others. That's just me being blunt, me being honest. Youth are going to be busy. Be accommodating, be understanding. And just because some youth don't get back to you immediately doesn't mean that they don't care about what's going on. It means that they're busy and maybe having a mental breakdown like I do 24/7. Hey. And just being a genuine good person, because youth can smell inauthentic on you. As being a part of the system makes you forced to do that. You have to know who you're coming into contact with and what their intentions are. So we can very easily see if you're genuinely trying to connect with us or if you're doing it, let's say, because your job tells you so.
I feel like I want to have t-shirts made for my next meeting now that says youth can smell inauthentic on you. I think that's a great reminder to all of us that, people know, right? We all do as human beings when people are trying to really connect with us and when it's fake, right? So we want to, yes. I really appreciate what you're saying about that. I want to give our audience here just an opportunity real quick. If they have a question or something they want to ask about, you can type that in the chat or you can come off mute and ask. And then I have a wrap-up question or two. But Natalie in chat says, how do those of us working in child welfare that have lived experience get other workers with child welfare to understand the value and importance of implementing youth voices and uplifting lived experience? I'm wondering if you have some thoughts about that, Diamond.
Yeah, actually, we have a few of those specific people in our organization, those who have lived experience working in the child welfare system. And it's basically a thing of you would have an easier job because you come from a place where you understand, and also you come from a place where they are more likely to respect you off the bat. So just being able to communicate with them in the way that makes sense to them, and explaining how your experience ties into what you do today and how they can change their perspective to make sure that other youth have the same opportunities to be guided and to be, I don't know how you say it, but like to be supported in a way in which they can become what you are today. Thank you. Sorry.
Thanks, Simon. Other questions? So I'm wondering, Diamond, with our just a few minutes left here, were there things that is there anything else you want the audience to know? I mean, you had the talk was great and very pulled together. You've shared some wonderful insights with us in the interview at this point, and I just want to leave space for you if there are things that you want people on our call here to know to to go. There we go. I see cat duties are calling here. So
this is my son Bennett. Yeah, just of course, thank you all for listening to me talk. Thank you for listening to me talk about things that I'm passionate about. It's one step closer to becoming the society that I hope we will be eventually, that values people over I wouldn't say profit, but that's usually the phrase, but people over anything else. And just knowing that you have the power to change in your own significant way. It's just a matter of not being discouraged and believing in yourself and others, because there are youth that are just like me, waiting to be called upon. We just need you to come and call on us.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for answering the call, because that doesn't have to happen every time either. But thank you so much, Diamond, for everything that you've shared with us and for taking time out of what I know is a very busy schedule for you. I know you're super engaged in a lot of things moving forward. So thank you for taking time with us, for creating the talk, for answering the questions, and for all the work that you're doing for all of us, quite frankly, the youth in the system and the professionals as well. So thank you very much. And we will see you all at the next CIP talk in January. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Have a good day, guys. Thank you for listening to me talk.